Any property can be bought subject to. However, there is, of course, a due on sale clause in the existing mortgage. So the lender has the right to call that loan due if they choose. Depending on how you buy it and how you close it, the lender may or may not know that the deed transferred. Okay. So the new buyer is not assuming the loan. They're not personally guaranteeing the loan. They are taking over the title with the debt in place. And so the debt stays on the previous owner's credit report, and they are personally guaranteeing it until a future date when it's paid off. Welcome to the Generations of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dombeck. And today's show, we've got a realtor coming on. And this is actually a really, really fun show. And I know that sounds bad the way I just said it, but it's not, because, when you have the right agents and brokers on your team, it can make all the difference. So Teresa DeMark and I are going to have a really great conversation here coming up. And before I bring Teresa on, one of the things that I've really been trying to do at the beginning of these shows is, number one, thank you for being a follower and being here every week. But number two, just really want you to utilize us at the Generations of Wealth to help you with your network, to help you with anything. We're always out there doing deals. We're raising private money. We're helping other people raise money. Or if you're looking for investments, I'm happy to talk to you about that as well. But I want to be a resource for you. So reach out to derekdombeck.com, thegenerationsofwealth.com. Let us help you build your business, build your network, and ultimately live your vision and love your life. So with that, let's bring on our guest. And here we are with one of the premier real estate agent brokers from Florida, Teresa DeMark. Thank you so much for joining me on a Generations of Wealth show.
Thank you, Derek, for inviting me. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Absolutely. When we get started here, I'm really, for me personally, I'm excited to talk with a realtor that actually can speak our language, the real estate investor language as well. But before we dive into any of that, tell the world a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you hail from, and some of your experiences.
Okay, I'm Teresa DeMark, and I'm with All Real Estate, Inc. here in Brevard County, the Space Coast area where dreams come true. We have some men that are going to go up to the moon here soon, so anything is possible, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, and I'm excited. I've been here for over 30 some years. I've been selling real estate, investment property, and we manage rentals for our investors. So I have a little of this and a little of that, hence our name, All Real Estate. We actually do commercial also, properties, just to give you a little background on us. My company will be celebrating 25 years in May this year, All Real Estate. So we're excited about that too. I have an assistant that is awesome. She's going to get back her license, and she's been in property management with condo associations for over 30 some years. So we have a lot of combined knowledge here at All Real Estate. The market here has always been a little bit small and tight, opposed to something like Orlando, because we are Central Florida. And Orlando has lots of growth. We have a lot of growth in South Florida, Palm Bay area, and more affordable housing. But when you talk about Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, and Cocoa, we have limited space. So we do a lot of resale.
Okay. Well, and I'm just going to sound like I'm picking on realtors occasionally through this conversation, and just know that that's not you. That's in general the realtors that don't go out and do things like this, right? They're not trying to build a network. They're not trying to expand their reach or give their time to a podcast. But we see a lot of realtors around the country. I'm in Wisconsin, but this show goes out nationwide, that came on board or do come on board when markets start heating up. and then we see a thinning of the herd typically when markets slow down.
Yes.
Now, what I love about your experience is that you've been through several market cycles, as have I. My regular listeners know that I got my ass kicked in Florida real estate in 2007. So, um, not that I don't like Florida, but haven't bought anything in Florida since. And and I think that's really important because you have made it through those ups and those downs, and you've got a lot of the highs and the lows, the lessons that we all learn from. And that's why I was really excited to have you on the show because many agents either won't give their perspective or don't even have a perspective because they haven't lived through it.
Right. When we call them newbies.
Oh yeah, yep. And we have the
Not
same
to pick
thing.
on them, but they really do not know that time is of the essence. Still, that's like rule number one in real estate. And time of the essence has always been there. It's like a real estate question. Now is the time, not 2 years from now or 3 years from now. I've had a lot of buyers through the years come down and go, well, I'll wait till the prices come down. The prices in general have never come down if you're talking about waterfront or oceanfront
Mhm.
or, we're talking Space Coast now too. Yeah, the Space Coast has gone up and down through the Obama era and closing the Space Center. And now we've got um, Elon Musk that's just building the area crazy. Amazon has come in. There's just so much going on. The growth is not going to stop. People are fleeing some states and coming to Florida because we have no state income tax. And that's been a big deal in the news if you've listened to the news lately. So we've got just great opportunities here and it just never stops.
Yeah, and obviously it's very market driven depending on your little niche markets.
Yes.
And so some of the people that I've met with over the years that like virtual wholesalers, as an example, they get a property under contract virtually. They've never seen it. They don't know the area. They're just doing everything as what the computer screen tells them the value is. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But to have boots on the ground or somebody with that local knowledge to which street or which neighborhood is going up, which one's going down, it's priceless,
Yes,
right?
that's true. And investors do try to get, I got to say right now, because it seems to be an investor's market because things aren't moving and they want to approach those homes that aren't moving and try to get a deal. So all of my sellers have been getting those letters from those investors, but they don't want to deal with dropping the price that low. So they're holding out.
Yeah, and I have so I coach some people from around the country and what I love doing and my regular listeners know this is creative deal structuring and buying property either for cash, but if that doesn't work, buying on terms. And I have some students on the west coast of Florida who are seeing a different market at this point. They have a where you kind of have an inventory shortage in your local market. They're seeing a lot of inventory and a lot of price reductions. And we're able to structure things where people get their full value for their home. They may just have to, take it over time or get paid out their chunk in 2, 3, 4 years, but
Right.
still able to get their full value. And one of the things that is challenging, and I love your opinion on this because I don't get to ask this question ever of a good realtor, is if I approached you on one of your listings and I said and you were asking $500,000 for this property, and I said, you know what, I can get the $500,000 that your client is desiring, but I'm going to have to do it through some sort of a terms offer. Are you, as an agent broker, open to having that conversation, or are you? And again, I keep saying you. I mean, you more along the lines of your industry. Do you think it's just you hear investor and terms or the word creative, and you back away? What do you think the majority of people or agents think versus how you think?
That's a good question because investors are doing exactly what you're saying. And I present all offers. By law, we're supposed to present
Mhm.
all offers to our sellers. And some agents are like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going there. So even if I know my seller's mind, I still have to run that by them.
Hmm.
And there was an investor, I hadn't even talked to him on the phone, through an email, that wanted to know if he paid full price with 50% down, would they finance the other 50%? And I was like, wow, we haven't gotten a full price offer forever. And that sounds really good to me. And would you hold financing? Some of our owners might have that money to front that 50% mortgage.
Hmm.
So it's always worth asking them. And some
Yeah.
of them are like, no, I do have a mother and daughter that are selling a place and an investor is buying it. We had it on the market, we reduced. And really, we didn't want to deal with financing because of the 4 point. And I don't know if your people know about what a 4 point an inspection is, but the insurance companies won't cover it if the roof is older, it is less than 5 years on the roof and all this stuff. So then they come in with an offer and then they beat you up anyway after inspections, where the investors will usually say, I'm buying it as is, let me run through. I
Hmm.
kind of know what you're saying because we're really honest. We have property disclosures.
Yep.
Will you buy it? And we finally went with that. We were done with the headaches, people beating us up, beating us up, beating us up. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, could you do a conventional with 20% down? And we're going, yeah, but you're going to have to do your inspections. And I'm trying to explain this to the buyer
Hmm.
that you're going to come back and say no because it needs an AC, and an AC is what? Run $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah.
Not a big ticket item, but they're going to come back and beat you up because you don't have it. So you got to build it in the financing. Then can you get it approved is another problem. So this one deal, we're closing tomorrow actually on a
Good.
house in Merritt Island, and it's a steal with a pool because we just got fed up with all the
Mhm.
rigmarole that goes on with the buying process.
Well, the show that is would be released. So if you're listening to this, it's the show that was released last week. Was a gentleman that put together a software program that is designed to help with home inspections. So after you as an agent, whether you're buyer's agent or seller's agent, the home inspection is done. How often do you have to try and deal with a very short time frame to get contractor bids, get contractors to actually show up and give you those bids, knowing full well they're probably not going to get the work and all that stuff, right?
Right.
So last week's show was all about his software program that they can using AI, they can put that into their program, and they supply all the bids, they supply the contractors, they man the work, and they get it done for essentially, I want to say for agents, but it is of course for the sellers and the buyers. But the agents are the ones that you have to deal with all this babysitting and all this, quite frankly, bullshit.
Yeah,
Um,
running back and
uh,
forth to the property, getting roof quotes, and yeah,
yeah,
you got it. You got to get it all. Pool quotes, lawn quotes, whatever.
yep. It
Absolutely.
is definitely babysitting, and I've said for years, agents, good agents are worth every dime of commission that they get paid. I mean,
Yes. I just
100%.
went over my commission with my seller. She goes, Teresa, you deserve so much more. And with that new law where you negotiate the commissions, that starts at the beginning. That's not at the end after you've done all the work. So our commissions are getting cut into big time.
Why don't you touch on that a little bit? Because most of us have heard about it, and some of us know the details, but some don't. So how has
Okay.
that? I guess explain the how that law came to be and how it's affecting you guys.
Well, that law came to be with some agencies out in California, and there was a lawsuit, and a National Association of Realtors were supposed to be backing us with all of our dues and everything else, but we went down the tubes overnight because the lawyers decided that now the seller doesn't have to pay commission. Well, the sellers never had to pay commission. It was always negotiable to
Mhm.
the very end. And that's when all this would come into play. If you had a wonderful house and not a whole lot of work, maybe you didn't make that much. So you gave up some of your commission in negotiations. But if you have it on the market forever, they would maybe negotiate, this agent would put in a little off of their commission and this agent would put a little off of their commission. And that's already happened with the new law.
Hmm.
So now we can't say what the seller's going to pay, but we have to sign up the seller and say, well, you know what? If you really want your house to sell, they still want commission. And what they've started is a nightmare of steering. And steering is against the law, but they've started a nightmare of steering. So that lawsuit was not good for our industry at all. And all it does is put the lawyers in a better situation to get involved with every deal. So we don't have lawyers here in Florida, but I know when in Pennsylvania they did, you didn't have to use them. And in New York and New Jersey, you do have to use them. And all they're doing is getting ready to put that on everybody because it was a ridiculous lawsuit actually. And I don't know, I wasn't involved, obviously, or I
Hmm.
would have given my 2 cents while it was going down, but very disappointed in the National Association of Realtors because they did not stand up and say it's always been negotiable.
Right. And there's so many disclosures and things involved in taking a listing and selling a property on somebody else's behalf as a fiduciary, and to now be pigeonholed with even more regulation and more things in regards to commission. Um, I agree. I think it's not proper and it's not right. And one of my fears is with the AI and as everything's progressing so quickly, I hear people saying all the time, well, there won't be any need for realtors in 5 or 10 more years.
Oh my goodness, they're so wrong.
And well, I agree. And the problem with that is, yes, are there some realtors that we probably don't want or need in the industry? Of course, we have that in every industry. We have landlords and house flippers and wholesalers and all the other stuff that are really great, and we have some that are, not doing ethical and moral business. But
Right.
but you're not going to change that with regulation. You
No.
change that with building a strong network, communicating with each other, and going on to discussions like this and saying, hey, we should be working together. Real estate investors, realtors, mortgage, lenders, everybody that's combined in this business should be having each other's back, not the other way around. And
Right.
it almost seems like the regulation, which is always, in my opinion, government overreach, trying to
Mhm.
maybe they had the best of intentions at the beginning when they, started the legislation, but it never ends well. It never ends that way. A lot of the anti-wholesaling laws, I agree with. There are wholesalers out there that are putting properties under contract with no ability or intention of closing if they can't find an assignable, buyer. And then they do harm the owner and they walk away. But,
Right.
but then there's also a lot of wholesalers that are helping homeowners that have a non-saleable house that's non-financeable, and these sellers are in bad circumstances, either financially or the condition of the property.
Right. Right.
So
And
there's.
you brought up 2 points, and I don't want to stop you though, but
Mhm.
one of the investors on this home that another investor is buying, they took the property under contract with the idea they were going to buy it, but they had this inspection period, and you might be familiar with this, but I was not. During the inspection period, they advertised it with my pictures. And I think that's a little bit unethical, and I don't know where and how that happened. My pictures, and then they were calling me saying that they were going to inspect the property and they're going to have all their buyers run through during an inspection. So they tied up the property, took it off the market, stigmatized the property immediately, and then they came back and then said, no, you didn't pass inspection. I thought that was a little bit different. That's not, I haven't seen that. I just saw that for the first time this year.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I can definitely give you some feedback on that. And that is what a lot of these anti-wholesaling laws have been put in place for. Pictures are tough because, uh, and I'm not giving anybody legal advice, and I don't think you are either.
yeah,
So
no,
those of you listening, this is my opinion. But, pictures, unless they're copyrighted, anybody can go and pull them off the internet and reuse them, and it's pretty tough to go against them. However, a wholesaler that has a property under contract, an assignable contract, they are not supposed to market the property. They're supposed to market the fact they have an assignable contract, which means they're also not supposed to market the address or the pictures or anything publicly.
Oh,
And
interesting.
and that's where like Ohio has come down really hard on this. There's about half a dozen states that have already come down really hard on it. Illinois is another one, and all the other states are going to follow suit, as they should, because if I put a property under contract with you, Teresa, and I don't have the ability to close or the intent to close, and I'm just looking for another buyer, I'm brokering without a license.
Right, exactly.
100%. I put a property under contract. I may want to wholesale to somebody else, but if I don't find somebody else, I have the ability and the intent to close on it and move forward. And that's the difference.
Yeah,
So
you,
it's
you
it's the
have
ones
integrity.
right. But it's also the ones that screw it up for everybody that does have integrity because they're out there, gaming the system.
Right, right.
Um, and there was some news a couple of weeks ago out of Florida as well. I don't know if you saw this, where because I do buy properties subject to existing financing. But there was some bigger, heavy players. I think it was in the Jacksonville area that just stopped making payments on all these homes they had bought subject to the financing and walked away from them. And
Wow.
that again harmed all the previous homeowners because title transfers, but the
Mm-hmm.
mortgages are still in the previous owners' names. That harms them. So
Yeah,
there's legislation right now in multiple areas of the country that are trying to, put in different laws and things in effect as far as buying property subject to existing financing.
right. Well,
And
you brought
there's
up assignability too. Our Florida contracts does have assignability or no assignability, but I would never take a contract and put a seller in that position where there's no assignability. There's usually assignability and not withdrawn from the contract, or they can switch the name, but they can't pull from the contract. And
right.
that's what they did. That was not assignable. So they didn't advertise it like you said that they should have advertised it, but it wasn't even assignable. So I did call the broker and I said, "What are you doing? This is not right at all." So you're absolutely right on that assignability too, by the way.
Yeah, and in some states, like my state of Wisconsin, a contract is assignable unless it indicates it's not by
Okay,
by default.
by
But
default.
but I will put in an assignability clause regardless. If that,
Mm-hmm.
but I disclose it. I tell everybody what it's all about and why it's there. And typically, I'm not doing it because I want to wholesale to somebody else. I'm doing it because I'm probably going to either close on it in a different entity or a trust.
Right.
And I can't write a contract in the name of a trust that because the trust isn't drafted or established yet at the time I
Yeah.
made the offer.
Yes.
So,
Makes
I
sense.
but it's interesting because, again, we can have these conversations, but most agents, in my humble opinion, are so undereducated. They don't know what any of this is or what it means. So what's our default? If we don't understand it, we just say no, right? Like an agent that doesn't understand assignability, they're going to go back to their client and say, don't take that offer, or I can't advise you to take that offer because it's assignable. They don't necessarily even know what that means.
They don't. You're
Um,
right.
how many hours of education does it take to get licensed in Florida?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I've had my license for a long time. I want to say, I don't even know off the top of my head. I mean, just to take a management course to be a broker is 72 hours.
Hmm.
That's just the management part after you get your broker. So I'm thinking like 149 hours.
Okay.
And they're gonna try to pass that you have a college education too soon. So, and to know it took, if you cram it, you're lucky to get it done in two weeks. And
Hmm.
then you have to go through another study course, and then you have to do your Florida license testing. So, not every state is reciprocal, like New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania, where I had my license, is not reciprocal to Florida. Georgia,
Right.
Alabama, Florida, they're about the same. I don't know, Wisconsin. Uh,
We, yeah, we can reciprocate across like into Minnesota and Illinois, but there's still some further education. But ours is still under, I actually do have a broker's license. I just don't use it. But ours has always been, I think, 72 hours to get your agent's license, another 36 hours to get your broker's. But they changed the brokers a few years ago. Now you have to serve under a brokerage for at
Over for,
least 2 years.
yeah,
You have to do a
2 years.
certain volume of business, which we never had back when I got my license. But my point to that is the agents and brokers grumble about having to do their 16 hours of continuing education every 2 years, you
Right.
know?
That's
And I
nothing.
mean, you're calling yourself a real estate professional, but all they're really teaching us, honestly, is how to not get the broker sued, how to, not do anything wrong, but it
Right?
doesn't actually teach agents about real estate,
No, it doesn't.
right?
No.
How do you feel
No.
about that? I mean, I think you know how I feel about it.
Well, it makes it difficult to even discuss with a realtor on the phone when they're even getting into the equal housing opportunity. I had a realtor yesterday asking me about age familiarity of the tenant applications. And I was so angry. I didn't even know where to start. And she started saying, "Why are you getting so mean and nasty? You need to answer these questions because I got to be able to tell my owner what kind of tenants you're bringing in." I was like livid, ready to call the beeper. I did call the broker
Hmm.
yesterday, and the broker hasn't even called me back. I was livid, livid. People don't even understand the basics of steering, of
Yeah.
equal housing opportunity, and how they really hurt the selling of or leasing of property.
Well, and that discrimination is heavily taught in that little bit of education that they're required to get. So that one's really sad that
Yes, that was
that
very, very
realtor.
sad. And that
Yeah.
was a big, big name brokerage, by the way. And sometimes the bigger the name, you really have to watch what's going on because I was explaining on another podcast that there's a lot of fraud going on. And the big company hired the sign, got the sign out there, did everything, even had the buyer, and they didn't even really do the basics of finding out was it a real person.
Oh,
So
wow.
I just got to say, working with a smaller, I call myself a boutique
Hmm.
real estate company. I was with Caldwell Banker myself, not saying that, the big guys aren't bad, but I'm just saying it's nice to deal with somebody that they have their hands on everything from start to finish and
Yeah.
not push it to a transactional person and push it over here to another person and push it over here to the insurance people and push it over here to the inspection people because they need to come together. So it's another frustration of mine dealing with newbies, but whatever.
I love it. We're just having a bitch session. It's fantastic. But that's what's needed, right? Like I want people like myself and my listeners to know that there's people like you out there to work with that, like I said, we're a team. We're not I guess cringing when we have to make a phone call to each other because it shouldn't be that way. Some of my best relationships, I've been in this business for 24 years now, I think it is. And some of my best relationships with realtors and brokers have brought me phenomenal deals, but it was also, I was able to solve problems for their clients that nobody else could.
Right.
And so they use me as an outlet when, yeah, 98% of the homes are going to sell conventionally to other, owner occupants and I'm not needed. But there is that 2% where, hey, there's some big challenges here. And having those relationships where they can call me and work through things, even if I don't get the deal, I don't care, right? I help
Mhm.
them. Eventually we help each
Right.
other.
You help each other, exactly. Well,
Yeah,
you can learn from each other too. It's not like you have to go out and make the same mistake.
for sure.
Um, so I just I get a lot of referral business because they know how I deal with integrity, honesty,
Hmm.
forthright. And you might not want to hear what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Not that the sellers always listen to me or the buyers always listen to me, but I will
Right.
let them know my opinion. And that's why I have a license, so I can state my opinion.
Absolutely. So in your little niche market, what do you see happening in 2026?
Again, that's another good question. I mean, if I had a crystal ball, I'd be out there buying or selling property right now. But the I see it a little bit increasing in sales because the interest rates have come down and they're supposed to maybe come down. We're getting a new Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh in there, I guess is his name, is going to be coming in, and I'm sure that they may go down a little, but I don't think the rates are going to go down that much. Um, what I see is as people flee into my state, that our supply gets low, and that's another basic of real estate. Supply gets low, and prices go up, demand gets high, and then you've got more pricing to deal with. We still have a lot of rentals on the market, and because of the insurance and all the issues that are going on with that in Florida, the rental prices are a little high. So the rental prices have to come down a little. So then the sales for investors and everything go up. So,
Mhm.
because right now, if you're selling a house at a 500,000, what's the rent that you have to get on that? That's a lot of rent.
Especially with
So,
the insurance costs. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, insurance costs and then maintenance on top of that. So, I see the market getting better, but it's not going to take off like crazy. I also see that now's the time to buy. Time is of the essence because if our supply gets any lower, our prices are going to go up. So,
Mhm.
and interest rates, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference if we're talking a half or a quarter% right now, because there is a little bit more on the market for sale. Now's the time to buy. And I always say now's the time to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one thing I've tracked for years, and I owned a lending company for 10 years as well. So I would always track the average days on market. And a lot of people they don't watch that at all, or they don't even know to watch for it. And, you know, we still in the Midwest, we still are averaging 45, maybe 60 days on market.
That's not
That's
bad.
that's not bad. But
Mm-mm.
everybody that's so used to the last 5 years freaks out because they're not getting multiple offers and 20 showings on the day that it goes live and everything else. Like,
Right.
could you just please explain to the world what an average real estate market is supposed to look like? Because they don't understand it. You've been through this for 25 years.
And that's a good question again. Another one. The average market was 60 to 90, well, 100, 6 months, 3 months to 6 months was the average time to sell a home before.
Hmm.
So 30 days was unheard of for, I would say, over 25 years.
Hmm.
Um, 60 days is still awesome. 90 days is even still awesome. And then when you're talking $500,000 or more, that's a lot of money to some people. So that's going to take a little while to get that buyer with the money or the qualifications or whatever. We're not in the Miami market. People aren't going to come here and spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's not our market. Never has been. Yes, we have $1 million properties on the waterfront, but they're very limited in themselves. So, um,
Yeah.
60-day close is awesome. And the average close time, now that you brought that up, when you write a contract in Florida, it's usually 30 days out. And I hear that's very quick to a lot of states.
Yeah, a
So
lot of them are pushing 45, and
yeah,
and that's
we've
something I
never
do
even
in
blown.
that's something I do in all my contracts when I sell properties is if they ask for 45 days, I will politely counteroffer to 30 with the understanding I'm okay with an extension, but if we give a lender 45 days, they will take
They
45
will
days.
take it.
If we
Yes.
give them 30 and they grumble, let them grumble, you
And
know,
then we can extend it.
yeah, buyer and seller, we're in agreement. We will extend, but let's put their feet to the fire a little bit because they won't even open the file until day number 35.
Exactly.
And then they're like, oh yeah, we got 45 days to do it. And I get pushback on it occasionally, but I stick pretty solid to that. We just closed the USDA loan on a property, and USDA is typically challenging to get it closed in 45 days. And I did
Mm,
that. We gave them 32 days to close, and they got it done.
good.
So,
Good.
you got to stick to your guns a little bit, but again, the seller, me being the seller and the buyer, we knew that we would be willing to extend. But
Right,
every day that I have to hold a vacant property costs me a lot of money. And it's not just the holding costs, it's the opportunity costs of what can I do with that funding into the next deal. I want to
right.
keep churning, you
That's a
know.
good point too. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. The
But
um the also I got it. One of the things that just want to mention, because I'm sure there's buyers out there. I think buyers are not getting educated enough in what programs are out there.
mhm,
So you have creative buying skills, but there's a lot of buyers that don't know that there's first time grants. There's like you said, creative financing. If they could be looking at a house that might need some work, and that there's loans out there that you can, you know, get uh those things paid in escrow and get done after closing for 6 months. And these, I don't want to say these new realtors, they don't have a concept. I had an offer and the guy didn't even know how to put the deal together. So he
mhm,
was stuck on FH or VA when he needed to go to an FHA, and it could have been a wonderful deal for himself. But just
mhm.
because FHA, you can put no money down too. The
Right.
seller can pay some of the closing costs. So I think we got to educate our buyers a little bit more too.
We do, and I love when an agent will write in that it's conventional financing in the offer, and then you get the proof or pre-approval letter, which they're useless, quite frankly, but you get the
Yeah,
pre-approval letter and it clearly says FHA. I'm like, no, I accepted an offer that was conventional, not
right.
FHA, and they don't even know the difference. And
No,
I'm
they
like,
don't know the difference.
there's a
Exactly.
big difference. Um,
Yes.
well, Teresa, what is one question I should have asked you that I did not? And it can be about anything.
What question did you not ask me about? Uh, Investors and rentals. How does an investor know that it's a good rental?
And what's the answer?
Well, rate of return, obviously. And that's not computing really well. That's what's bringing down the value of the purchases right now.
Mhm.
So, you want to talk a little bit about that because you're on the buying and investing side. How do we get that property to match that they can actually invest in it?
And my answer, at least how I structure things, is we're either finding a property that has really good financing in place and keeping it in place and buying it subject to that, and then paying out the seller on their equity, whether it's in cash for their equity or over time. That's all deal specific, but that is a way that we can get into a property and lock in, 3% rates for a long period of time, 3 to 4% rates.
I don't see a whole lot of assumable loans down here.
Well, they're not assumable.
How do they take over the mortgages then?
They're bought subject to the financing. This is what we were talking about earlier with all the different regulation that's coming into place because um, any property can be bought subject to. However, there is, of course, a due on sale clause in the existing mortgage. So the lender has the right to call that loan due if they choose. Depending on how you buy it and how you close it, the lender may or may not know that the deed transferred. Okay. So the new buyer is not assuming the loan. They're not personally guaranteeing the loan. They are taking over the title with the debt in place. And so the debt stays on the previous owner's credit report, and they are personally guaranteeing it until a future date when it's paid off.
And how soon do you usually offer that payoff?
Um, Deal specific again, but I would say the average, at least on how I structure, is 2 to 4 years.
Okay.
Because what I typically do when I buy a property that way is I'm going to put a rent to own buyer in there that isn't quite mortgage ready, and we'll work with them to help them get mortgage ready.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how, in many cases, I can get an owner full value for their home where they're not able to get that otherwise. They just may have to wait for 2, 3, 4 years to get their equity out of it. But some of these homes that were, dealing with, especially on the West Coast and the Northeast, $1 million homes. I mean, their carrying costs are $5,000 to $7,000 a month,
Right.
and they're vacant. And in the Northeast, they're vacant and they're in cold weather, so they can have obvious heating
Right.
problems and all the fun stuff of living in a cold climate, just like we have in Wisconsin. So if they go on, I can't tell you how many people, Teresa, we talk to, especially in the upper Midwest, Northeast part of the country, who says, well, I just pulled my property my agent told me to pull the property off the market and we're going to relist in spring. Okay.
I'd say they were doing that here in Florida. We did.
Well, it's conventionally that sounds like good advice, except
Mhm.
who's paying all those carrying costs while it's
Right.
vacant and not on the market? So I would much rather have somebody in that property and not have to worry about it because it's occupied, putting a tenant buyer in that property and not just sit on it for 3 to 6 months waiting for a spring market when everybody's going to put their stuff back on the market and kind of flood that market, you know?
So is that a lease purchase?
Yes.
We call lease purchase here.
Yes.
Okay. We did do a lease purchase. I did one personally. Um, and it was too long. So that's
Okay.
why I was asking you about time, because the market changed well in the advantage of the lessor because the property value went up so high in that 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that didn't really help me. So I learned a hard lesson there on a lease purchase.
Well, and it just depends on the circumstances of the seller, right?
Yeah,
Because if the seller is hemorrhaging money like crazy, they're locking in a purchase price. If the market goes up, yes, the lease purchase benefits. But if the market doesn't go up, it doesn't work
doesn't.
the other way,
Yeah,
right? And there's
right,
got to
exactly.
be if I'm going to pay somebody full market value based on today's value when the transaction's actually done, part of my investment risk is what is the future market going to be? Nobody
Mm-hmm.
knows.
Right,
You
right.
know? So
But that's a clever way to buy a home, and it's a good way for a buyer to look at buying a home. It usually
mhm.
works out to their advantage. Actually, it can.
It definitely can. And the thing with the buyer, the tenant buyer, they have to put up a non-refundable option fee for the lease purchase. So if the seller has that option fee or us as the investor or buyer has that option fee, that's hedging that they could fail and we have to put
Yeah,
another person in that property, right? But
right.
we do personally, we do a lot of upfront vetting. We want to set people up for success. I don't want to take their non-refundable money and knowing that they're probably going to fail. So I have to qualify all of my tenant buyers. They talk to my mortgage lender. We're doing basically full loan applications as if they were getting a loan today, finding out what are their challenges. And if my personal relationship with my mortgage broker that they talk to comes back and says there's no way they're going to be able to buy this within a couple of years, I'm not putting them in that property.
Yeah, you're not gonna put them in.
But
I'm
there
not.
are many, many, many people that don't care about that, the whole morals and ethics thing. And they're just like, well, I just got 10, 20, $30,000 down and I know they're going to fail, but I get to keep that money and that's more cash flow. And that's the wrong way to do it.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
Well,
That's creative.
Teresa, I really appreciate you coming on the show and having a candid conversation with me and letting me I don't bash the real estate industry or realtor industry. I know that there's a like any industry, there's a certain percentage that's fantastic, and then there's a certain percentage that needs some more education, you know?
Yes, yes, yes. So, but thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And anybody that's out there looking to buy waterfront property or property down here in Brevard County, feel free to get a hold of me. My number's there somewhere.
Yep, yep. Perfect. And
So,
they can always come to thegenerationsofwealth.com and we can always get you connected with Teresa as well. We have contact information for obviously every podcast guest we ever have on the show. And that's part of what we do is we are connectors. So thank you so much.
thank you. I appreciate it. Hope to talk to you again sometime.
You bet. For everybody else listening, you know the drill. come back next week and spread the message. Help us spread the Generations of Wealth show to anyone that you feel like needs to hear it or should hear it. And until next week, go out, live your vision, and love your life. See ya.
Bye.